Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Self-Help Bookshelf. I'm Kay Reeve. This is my co-speaker, Rory Lemon. And today we're going to talk about being organized versus being productive. And this sounds a very interesting combination, Rory. I can see there'd be some very fascinating things come out of this.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh
Okay.
yes. Thanks for the introduction. If you're here live, and give us a hello. If you're on the replay, you can put in hashtag replay in, and it's just everything that you find interesting, ripple effects with the algorithms, and when you get an insight and you just declare it, you type along, or it's all you in action. It's creating new bonds for yourself and bonds for everyone else in these times of a lot of information. But do we do we learn something? Do we grow with it? Do we put it into action? And even just going, yes, I understand that, I like that, is a reaffirmation. And an affirmation is not just saying I am happy. It's that's maintaining bonds or creating new ones or getting bonds even stronger for what we do want to create in the world. And that is a high leverage action in itself. So thanks for listening and sharing whatever you want to share. Um, I'll probably learn how to say that even quicker and quicker and quicker as we go along. But yeah,
Organized. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, organizing on one side, productivity on the other. Uh, and there can be a lot of like struggles with both of these, being feeling more neurodivergent or more just challenged with life in general. Especially if we're trying to do something on our own, or working, or trying to fit into someone else's idea of organization or productivity. All of these are important things to bear in mind. Is the who's organizing is it anyway? Whose productivity is it anyway? And what is it that we want to actually create? Because I would just say, right, one word, what, just before I pass it over to what you get from this, Kay. The idea of organization is is the is how is the how, but it's also the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of, and philosophies even. It doesn't have to be a physical, mechanical thing. It can be just the way we do things rather than the how we do things. But the way we do things will it produce something or other. A thought, a feeling, an action taking will create something or not create something, or maintain something, some pattern, or change some pattern. It will produce something because there's a time line within the now, and the now is happening. And so, from when I just started speaking to when I'm about to stop speaking, I produced a lot of words. I produced a lot of ideas for Kay to come back with, and I had to organize them with my voice. And my ideas going, how do I organize what I'm going to say? And I didn't plan this, but I organized it. So this is really interesting. What like planning, organization, and productivity. I'm going to throw that back to you now.
Thank you. Brilliant, Rory. Great intro. And hi to everyone watching. We have a few people watching in live already, so that's fantastic. So it's actually kind of comes from the last couple of weeks. This is triggered off just from us chatting, setting up all the tech in the background today. Is that it's like my head and my calendar have been in two separate universes. Now, I'm a highly organized person in some areas of life, but I'm completely disorganized in other areas. And it has a massive impact on productivity both ways. Because we're saying you can also be very highly organized with things that it actually hinders productivity as well. Like if you think, well, I can't get on with that because I've got to do this and I've got to do it in this order and I've got to get this done to perfection and completion, rather than just going, do you know what, that's fine as it is, get on with that, then this can hinder productivity. While at the same time, one can actually benefit the other. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic talking about this today. Really is. And wow, this. this actually came from, like I said, my head has been all over the place the last couple of weeks, and I am normally quite an organized person in my thoughts and in the way I structure my work to a degree. But last time we did an episode, last Monday, we talked that wonderful one about music. So I'd love to know if you listened to anything or what everybody got from the music session last week. Somewhere in that episode, we mentioned what we were going to talk about today. And I was not organized enough to write it down. And I cannot remember what we were going to talk about today. So, whatever it was, I'm going to commit to going and finding it, and we will put that on next week because neither of us can remember. Normally, whatever I say during, and this is where organization can be very fluid, it doesn't have to be mechanically organized. But most weeks, when we come up with a topic, somewhere in the last minute or two, I will repeat that. So the next time we do an episode, I know where to find it. If I haven't written it down, I can go back and go, ah, there it was. But I didn't repeat it at the end of the episode last time. And I haven't had chance to go back through the entire hour's podcast to find out what it was. So that is my mission. Unless anybody else can remember, let us know. We'll play it next week and put it in the comments. So this is kind of where today's topic has come from, a very simple little thing that I could have done. I normally do. I missed doing it. And now today I was sitting here going, what do we talk about? So we literally, out of thin air, said organization and productivity. But they are really important, especially around the neurodiversity. And certainly through my life and my career, without even knowing until 3 or 4 years ago that I had ADHD and whatever else comes with that, I knew that there was bits of life where I was organized and that it kind of counteracted for some of my weaknesses. And I knew where they sat, but hadn't understood why. So hopefully today we will come up with some insights and some funny stories probably along the way, a bit like me forgetting what I'm talking about, and some information that might give you some ideas and insights into yourself as to why organization and productivity go hand in hand, both positively and negatively, depending on how you use them. And Rory is great with all his mindset stuff about how we can actually make sure we all do that a little bit more productively. Not the way I've done it this week. Oh my goodness. So what an opening to a podcast episode. I forgot one thing and look at the difference it makes. So anyway, thank you for the great intro and the opening, Rory. Okay.
All good. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's wonderful to hear that you're human and I'm human, and these concepts help us to move forwards in one way or another, whether we remember the right a particular time or another time. And I love what you shared about memory, because that's really the crux of so much of it is. I, and then the mental fitness piece that comes to mind. I've managed to remember and repeat because I've repeated it for a year and a half. I did not miss a day doing some kind of work on it because it changed my concepts, or was like, this is exactly what I was struggling with all my life. That if I do this piece, then everything else shifts, and everything else has shifted and continued to shift because I have those philosophies inbuilt. I have those practices built inbuilt. And so remembering that it's neutral, all things are neutral in some way, shape, or form, unless we give it a meaning. And so that thing of being vulnerable and sharing my, I didn't do this or I didn't do that, that's not necessarily the bad or the good thing. That's just what happens. And to not make ourselves wrong by whatever we're noticing, and going, this is what it is. What can I do to learn more and commit to putting into memory so that everything becomes more organized and more productive in my life, is that memory piece. And what is a memory? It's a built up bonds of some kind of repeated process, or something so profoundly experienced that it wants to be remembered whether we like it or not. So that could be a negative experience in the past that was so strong that we don't want to remember it, so that we don't catch ourselves in that situation again. or a positive experience. And that's what the brain isn't really looking out for naturally, positive experiences, unless we train ourselves to do that process. Once we realize we are safe and we can be in control of our lives, then that's where the coaching piece comes in to go, what do you really, really want? Because that's the most important thing. And how do you commit that to your memory banks rather than, I don't want that other stuff to happen anymore. And because, yeah, so going off on a tangent is coming back to, well, not a tangent, but coming back to not going off on a tangent beyond this point is to
Keeping it relevant. Yeah.
get back to the point of memory repetition, or repeating to create memory, memory to repeat. It's an interesting cycle how it takes memory, remembering to repeat something to commit it to more memory, and it takes repeating something to commit it to more memory, and then round and round and round we go. So the last thing I'll say before passing back over is this idea that vision, what we envision for our lives, is more important than actually how we go about it, because that will happen if the vision is strong enough, we will move towards it naturally. And so that vision, and then the piece before that is uh like short term, mid term, and long term. What do we want to create in the short term, like every day? What do we want that to accumulate into in the midterm piece over the next few months or projects? And then the longer term, how does that plan out to become a bigger project or a bigger piece to the whole puzzle, or whatever you want to call it, to move forwards? And whatever gets created in the short term, midterm, or long term are what we will produce, whether we like it or not, depending on what we're focusing on. So a whole load there, but I'll just say that first of all, because then it takes organization is the actual, doesn't have again, it doesn't have to be a certain way. It doesn't have to be I must write to-do lists and stick to them and tick to them. In if that's a real struggle, or filling out loads of forms, all these things that some people struggle with language wise can be done a different way, but it's what to do to organize that way of being. And what vision, organizing the vision, it's often more to do with look at the longer term, and then everything else, short term, mid term, longer term, gets to the end result faster than thinking, oh, I've got to sort my day out first before thinking about the long term.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. And I love what you're saying there about the memory being all integral with that as well. Because you do have to remember to be organized. You have to be organized sometimes to remember things. And I had a job interview back in 2010. Well, the interview was going really, really well. And I was answering all the questions. And then they said, okay, so you've told us all these amazing things that you're good at. Tell us one of your weaknesses. I said, I've got a terrible memory. Why I just opened my mouth and let it out, I don't know, but I did in the middle of an interview. I said, I've got a really bad memory. And this is 15 years ago. And they kind of went, okay, so how do you cope with that? I said, I write everything down and keep it organized. Well, seeing as it was for a role doing a job in administration and office work, it was like, well, that suits what they wanted. If I could keep stuff organized and logged and recorded, that was perfect for what they needed. And there were so many times throughout the 7 years I was in that job where people would ask me questions. Oh, can you remember what happened on this day, or what happened there, or who's connected with that? And I was like, I've no idea, but hang on a minute. And literally somewhere within 10 seconds on my computer, or 2 or 3 minutes tops, I would have that information. And there were times when people came back and said, we had somebody come and visit 2 years ago and somebody came with them. Can you remember their name? And somewhere I would find the logs and pull up this information. And it was the organization for me was what I earned a living from. And this was what we were kind of laughing about before we came on. Why is it that in a job, and this is a big thing that I hear so many people, especially with the ADHD side, can go to a job and be highly organized, And I can be very pedantic about filing and organizing, and computer files were easy to find, physical files were easy to find. So why can't I do it at home? Why is it at home everything is so unorganized and chaotic and frustrating? And actually, it has a really big impact on emotions. So there's one thing to be organized because it keeps information I can't remember. But then there's also the part of organizing is at home can be A, in itself frustrating taking the time to do it. And B, if you don't do it and then you want something and it's not organized, it's frustrating as well. So organization can be productivity in itself, or it can help other productivity, but it can also be this frustration in the time it takes to be organized. And this morning I've had organisation of a different kind because I've had my grandchildren over for the weekend. So last night it was getting them showered, getting them ready for bed, making sure that all the right clothes were organised out this morning. Everything else was packed away, organised to go in the car this morning. So again, I had to be very organised last night to make sure this morning was very productive in getting the children out of bed, clothes on, in the car, get back to their house so we can get them ready for school because the school uniform hadn't come with them. So we had to be extra organised last night to make sure this morning was not chaos. And so many different ways in life this can affect us. But if I hadn't done that last night, you imagine how frustrating that would have been this morning, and how scatty it would have been, and how many things would have been forgotten and lost. So yeah, I've definitely found the benefit of being organised last night to prevent the chaos this morning, getting two children out of bed and off and home for half an hour's ride before going to school. So I'm going to throw that back to you.
Well done.
Yes, that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, I love everything you shared there because it's real.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like you said, about what can be considered as organized or productive. Um, and even like getting through the day in one piece, it can be someone's version of productivity. And good productivity at that. So, and then others, it's like I didn't, write 3 books this year. I'm under par of my productivity or whatever it is, and so it's like yeah, it's coming back to like what is wanted, and it's possible to develop what it is, and the organization piece. Like right now, there's all of that on my
Wow.
bed.
You
Like right now, there's all that on my bed, and that could look like mess to someone,
mm,
but I'm halfway through organizing all my notes.
yeah. Organised chaos. I always think of that.
So yeah, it looks like chaos, but actually, I mean, yeah, if I was to try, and there have been points when I've been so slow at organizing my stuff that I've taken nearly 2 weeks to do all this at points, and that's where I've got much faster at it. But there would have been times when I would have just slept in between all of that stuff because I couldn't, what I didn't want to like move it all to get into bed.
Okay. Yeah.
Was halfway through it and it was taking
Yeah.
ages and I was just like just going with that and that's just something that would happen for me and but that is like that is the depths of organization. It's not necessarily clean. Things have to become messy before they become tidy again. When I say
Yeah.
clean, I mean tidy. So, so yeah, to be able to, and sometimes it's like even getting all that stuff out the way requires some, like I just said, cleaning as well. So, like cleaning things takes reorganizing stuff to move it out the way and clean it, and then put it back again. And so it's that process of once I've done that, I'll know I'll have re-remembered where everything is and get a newfound sense of what to throw away, what to keep, what to do, and where to go going forwards. And all the while, my vision is that when I do this and I do it faster, it's a it's a health process for me because before I'd put it off for so much, or it takes so long. Um, and so when I'm doing it, I got into the mode of it through. If I do this now, I'm gonna feel so much better afterwards. I'm gonna be looking. It's a sign of looking after myself and all that sort of stuff. So it becomes a health piece connected to the vision of what I want to do to maintain my levels of uh who I want to be and how I want to be. So yeah, organizing, pulling things apart, putting the things together again, it's all a matter of if that was staying like that and it was just frozen, it would potentially be disorganization as
Yeah.
such. Um, so so yeah, just throwing out ideas here on. And then the one piece that I would throw in at this moment is like the idea I like to bring in is which is fluid planning for those that find it difficult to who's and again who's organize it organizing is it anyway is like um that thing around if I want to get some things done they represent my vision for my health and my wealth and my stealth and I get these things done and I commit to getting these things done. If I miss one thing because something else happens, like my attention gets pulled away or whatever it is, or there's a reason for that. It's either is it distracting me or is it a way for me to just defragment because I was getting overwhelmed by thinking about all of this stuff, come away and then come back at it with fresh ideas and learn how to step away and step back again really quickly so that I can carry on. But the timing changes as long as I take that brick of time and something else happened, I can move it to here, then I still get it done. So it's about that recommitting to what's happening, keeping it fluid so that I don't make myself wrong. So prolonging the wrongingness of things is what essentially causes issues with people's stress, their health, and and whether or not they're staying focused, um, or whether they have attention deficit, or is it just because there's a lot going on and actually that's trainable, and it's more a case of environment, having the environment in the right place, the people understanding that, or the type of work that's been done, if it's something that's more conducive to my natural way of doing things, then I'd rather do that kind of work and be in that kind of environment than trying to like read loads and loads and loads of documents all the time, as with the dyslexia kind of thing, would be tiring. I wouldn't be able to do anything else other than read a bit and then relax and read and relax. It'd be like going up a flight of stairs and then having to rest a moment and then going up another flight of stairs. Whereas some people could just read and read and read and read and read and read and read. And that's so the productivity piece is based on comes back to maximizing on our natural strengths for getting that thing done and delegating, organizing what to not do and what to do that keeps our natural strengths up, has our in our environment. So we're getting into the productivity piece around environment, people, places, and how that supports our unique learning ability, as I like to call it.
Oh, brilliant, Rory. And yeah, there's, my goodness, a lot in there. And I'm trying to process all of that in my head. I'm trying to process all of that. There was something came out of it in my head a minute ago, and I was like trying not to lose that thought. Yeah, no, the organizing, like you're saying, with all the stuff on your bed, we're saying organized chaos. It looks chaos, but actually it takes time sometimes to organize thoughts onto paper and into a structured format for productivity. But that's productivity in itself is the process of doing. And it's very much like if you decide to sort a cupboard out, you've got to take everything out and sort it and reorganize it and then put things back in order. And that process of objectively taking ideas out of your head onto paper and notes and various bits and pieces, whether it's images and text and other reference information. My phone's ringing. I'll leave it. I'll get it in a minute. So it takes time to structure all of that. And that's the very reason that we go through that process that makes us authors, mentors, coaches, why we run workshops. I've got courses online. And I'm going to shamelessly plug this one in here for a minute. 30 Love Values. It's here. I have a copy. And that in itself was an idea that came to my head and went, oh, let me have a think. Right, I've got all these values that I've used throughout my lifetime. What are they? And I wrote them down. And it's 30. So it sounds like they're organised in a book, there's 30, but it went further than that. I then put them into some kind of order. So on the index, actually broken down into sections. So we've got the foundations of love, and then they're organised. And then we've got love through generosity and nurturing, and the pillars of strength and so on. So they're then actually structured down even further into sections of how each of the values work for different relationships. Now, as if that's not enough, so I've then created a page which breaks the structure down for that section. But then every chapter, and this is how it takes time to come up with all of this, is broken down into even smaller organised sections. So we've got the intro, and then we've got the definition of the value, the purpose of the value, what it achieves, what it helps you achieve. And then we've got a mantra. Then we've got a research fact. I can turn it around and read it. A research fact about that value. And then, even more organised, 20 ideas on how to use that particular value in a relationship or for your own self-boundaries and understanding. Then we go on to resolving setbacks and so on. So there's more. And it takes time sometimes to get what starts off as an idea in your head, and then we finish off with a quote and a summary. And then every chapter, all 30 of them, follow that. But it was going from, oh, I've got an idea, to creating that structure and being organised, then allowed me to be productive with writing the book. Like, can you imagine writing that without any organisation or any structure? It would completely hinder the productivity of writing it. Or I could write it, but it would make no sense. So again, there's this whole thing about getting ideas into place. So there is this part of productivity and what was the other one? We're doing organisation, that do work hand in hand, even if it is actually organising your own thoughts internally and not getting them out. And that is very linked with thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, which we've already done an episode on. And loads of other, I'm sure we could tie this in with almost every episode we've done if we think about it. But thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are, how we go about a day. Get up in the morning. What's the first thing you think of? Oh, I'm going to put the kettle on. Somebody else might think, oh, I'm going to go out for a run. But in your head, when you wake up in the morning, you've already got a certain structure to your day, like you're saying, a vision about how to step into your day with certain actions and doing them in a sequence. But other people might have a certain number of things that they do, not have a set sequence, and do them randomly, so long as they're kind of done in a chunk by a certain time of day or before they then go and sit down at the computer or leave the house. And so it doesn't always have to be rigidly structured, but it could be loosely organised, like you're saying, fluid planning as well. Like get up, have breakfast, have a coffee, go for a run, or exercise, whatever somebody does. Don't necessarily have to be in a set order. Pack your lunch. Some people might do it the night before. Some people might do it on the morning. Some might go, that's fine, I'll get lunch out. And so I think there's a lot of ways in which we can be flexible, and it's got to fit with who you are as an individual. But what do we do when somebody cannot get that vision of what they want to achieve, or they don't feel into that vision and it's not sitting right? Like, I could get up every day and go to the gym, but for me, no matter how many times I go to the gym, I can't imagine me then getting up and actually wanting to go. To me, that would not be a vision that I could attach to. So as much as I could put myself through the process and go, right, I get up, I'm organised, I'm structured to go to the gym, for me, it's not the vision that I want to achieve in that sense. So I can't, if you can't feel into it, I get what you're saying, you're not going to achieve it and it's not going to stick. So I think it's being aware of what fits authentically with you as an individual, but then also being aware if things you're doing are working against that vision of what you want to do, what you want to feel like, who you want to be. If the things that are fitting in your routine are not serving you, how can we also look at those things, which basically habits, routine, because we've done routines, haven't we, before, I think, in a topic. Routine versus variety, that was the episode we did. So routine versus variety. So if you've got a routine or whatever you're doing and it's not fitting comfortably, you don't necessarily want to add more in. How can we go about, like, for the viewers, because there are a few people watching in, so do ask if you've got any questions, we'd love to hear them. But how can we go about letting go of the non-serving routines that we've kind of got attached to but not helping us and keeping us stuck? I got there in the end with the question.
Spicy question.
Oh, yeah, spicy question, yeah.
Because I've organized my brain in a certain way, I immediately go into what's the question. It starts with a how, and so that's an automatic way for it's obviously important. It's the way the head logic brain wants to know that there's some kind of logical order to these things, and the how isn't necessarily the way to, other than potentially finding someone that's done it as a mechanical thing that's done that thing and ask them either how they do it or watch a video on how to do it and so but the curiosity piece around how to go about doing that is often there's a want to do that, and that comes back round to like um how do I put it? How do I put it? See, I wanted to find out how to say it. But and as I say that, that's a thought language thing. How to obviously logic, descriptive, mechanical language processing, whereas the actual want to do it is emotional. It's deeply felt. It's there's something that wants to be done is more of a sensed feeling, and it's often the sensed feeling that will either drive us to doing something about it or keep us doing the same thing because there's for some reason there's some inbuilt pleasure to staying and doing that same thing over and over again. And again, pleasure and pain, avoiding pain with pleasure, or avoiding pain and pleasure cycles, all that kind of stuff. So, it's emotionally. So the how to isn't necessarily, it doesn't matter how many books you read on it, it's what actions and what deep felt sense gets to be put into place. So how do I become better at cycling when I'm not going when or go for a bike ride to for my health, and yet I'm not doing it. I'm eating pizza instead. There's some level of as an example, there will be hunger comes up before I eat. I could go for a bike ride because that's an ideal time to exercise when feeling hungry is going to reset the blood sugars and do loads of things. That's the understanding is the how to is like doing something and understanding the science, the general science, but the actual science of doing it is trying it out yourself and seeing whether you like it or not, or whether it's beneficial. But it's the action taking of it. So, for instance, if I went for a bike ride and got some exercise when I started to feel hungry and then relaxed in it afterwards, I may even feel less hungry. It might have been something else. But my point being is that the hunger comes on, and the pattern, emotional pattern is if I don't eat, or if I put that off, it's uncomfortable to go and do something different, and it's comfortable to eat.
Yeah.
So there's an inbuilt pleasure to that whatever you want to call it, that habit that is not wanted consciously and logically it's not wanted, but emotionally it's wanted. And uh so it's how to change that is to get present really present, like so present to why it's not wanted, and relocating when this happens, I'm going to do this instead. When this happens, I'm going to do this instead. And that's a case of pre mental rehearsal. It's exactly what I like to help people with the inspired decision making framework and taking people through that. I've actually got a really cool thing that I put together, like a 4 hour session that's called Maverick, um, Magic Flow Maverick.
Wow. Oh, is that the one I went on to start earlier this year? Or is
No, no, this is
another
this,
one?
yeah,
Okay.
this is a different
Oh,
training.
very good. We've got
Yeah.
people watching on all streams now, which is lovely. Thank you. And so we're always grateful for any questions. I'm sort of trying to keep an eye on them. I was looking for something else on my desk as well, but I said, with my grandchildren here at the weekend, I'd hidden things. I found it now. And I love what you're saying. So I'm going to bring this up, which pops up now and again. The human emotional cycle. This is what it would look like if you could see it. This is what saved my son's life. And like Rory's saying, I get it. So when you're feeling stuck, which is very often towards the depressive feelings, what we're feeling, pain and pleasure, is varies for each individual between things that make us feel frustrated and angry versus sad and anxious. So it's whatever's holding us back. But like you're saying, what is it that we're seeking up here, the happiness? And I get what you're saying. If you want to go into the gym or bike ride versus pizza, which one are we going to enjoy most? And that's the one we tend to aim towards. So it's how we can reframe that we actually want the other one more for some reason. So it's making sense that, yeah, if I'd rather eat pizza than go on a bike ride, which for me I probably would, I'm good at falling off bikes, so I'd probably pick a different way. And I like how you're saying the how. So say, for example, I wanted to get fitter, and the fitter was the bit that's going to make me feel happy at the top, but I'm afraid of bikes and falling off them, or I get angry at going to the gym because I don't like somebody else always nicking the treadmill and I don't want all the weights. So I get what you mean. There's different feelings. So how else could I look at seeking that happiness at the top, the vision? That's where the vision is. That then overrides the vision of eating the pizza, that I actually want one more than the other. So I kind of, that makes a lot of sense, Rory. So thank you for explaining all of that, and that insight into how we can organize our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs into creating that productivity. Because otherwise, that's when the chaos brain kicks in, and instead of doing what we genuinely want as vision, like feeling healthy and well and fit and happy, it's very easy to not have those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs and habits and routines and productivity organized in such a way that we actually achieve them. So this is amazing how this is actually tying back with a lot of topics we've already done in the past. And I think I'm going to be going back listening to some of them again. And I'll try and tag them below if I remember as well on the YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to find them or check out the playlist on the YouTube channel, because I think this is our 32nd episode now, so there's quite a lot already out there. So if anyone's enjoying this and wants to find more, there is a lot of conversations we've already covered. And so yes, so the productivity is the part about the progress. And another way I was thinking of that earlier, it's come back to me. When you were talking about making progress and the chaos and then the being organized and getting stuff in order, and then you're saying like you've got stuff all over the bed, and that's getting organized, which is part of the process, and then it's time to sleep, but like you don't want to mess that up, or we have to go off and do something else and come back to it. And I was almost in my head imagining it like one of these little games, like a racetrack, and here's the start line and here's the finish line, and there's like these little steps in between, and like multiple processes can be going on at the same time. And it's so easy to look at everything being at the deadline before we feel happy. And this is where we talk about happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. And all of these little stages have got to move their way up this progress ladder to the end, to the deadline. But what we benefit from is celebrating every bit of progress along the way and recognizing that progress. is something's been productive, something's moved forward, and enjoy that, enjoy the process of things moving forward, because that is actually where the real happiness comes from. But if we don't look at the bits we have achieved and only looking at all the other steps that we haven't filled up, all the white spaces at the top. So it's like, imagine filling up all these little boxes with green, but we're too busy looking at all the empty ones at the top, white, filling this chart up. And then there's a slightly bigger celebration when one of them reaches the end, and it's almost like making life a game, isn't it? And I don't know why I've got this vision now. I want to do this now, write down all the things I want to do and put them on this racetrack. Celebrate every step time something moves. I might actually create a printout for that and put it up somewhere and link it back underneath, a little racetrack for productivity versus organization.
Love it. Love
yeah,
it.
Visioning into it, so there's something for me to produce and organize.
Brilliant. Love it. Yeah. Yeah, I love how you brought that back to like discerning between what's truly important, being happiness in the moment compared to it, because again, it can be organized, it could be amazingly organized and look at like everything's organized in the right places and knowing where everything is, and then you can also be really productive. You can get all those things, done and go, look, I did that and I did this and I did this and I did this. Um, and yet there can be huge amounts of stress related chronic health issues because it doesn't matter how organized and how productive someone is, if they're producing a state of not resting enough and not looking after the things that need looking after for health along the way, when it's just get stuff done, get stuff done, get stuff done, be organized, be organized. So it's that idea again, coming back to mental fitness, of going, what's important here is um doing a bit of everything, making sure a bit of everything is done. Like that, what fills me up emotionally, happiness wise, what health, exercise, moving, eating, breathing, sleeping, thinking, feeling, expressing, connecting things am I doing for my health? What am I doing with wealth, and where am I moving that forwards, or stripping back what I don't need wealth wise? It's not just about finances, it's about resources. It's about everything externally, environment, um, uh, faces, spaces, places, and and faces. Uh, uh, and and then yeah, targeting. But is it creating the real sense of celebration along the way? So yeah, I love all of that, and remembering that it's not just about declaring and getting things done, but also what does it mean to be alive, and what can you do to celebrate along the way? So thanks for that, Kay.
No, that's great. Thank you, Rory. And you've honestly so much insight here today, as always, from you on the thinking, feeling, believing process. You've got that nailed in a way that is just incredible. And, everybody's got their strengths in what they organize and produce, or their productivity in the world. And everybody's got their weaknesses as well. And that's actually not necessarily a bad thing to have weaknesses, because that's how we actually build teams and collaborate. And it's what the world economy is built on, because what one person's good at and organizing and another one's good at producing or being productive in is what helps them have a purpose and a value in life in supporting other people. And for us, it's organizing information, hence we are authors and write books. But for me, it was also when my son was suicidal for 12 years on and off. And this was the most crazy idea I've ever come up with to organize. I said I was used to organizing in a job role, working in offices for many years and organizing information and processes in the office. But when my son had been suicidal for so many years, and I realized that he couldn't see his emotions, and he's a visual learner. And I've had some really interesting conversations about this today, about the lack of ability to visualize internally, which I know you've talked about, and I know Sue has with the aphantasia. My son's been talking about it today as well, because he's been experimenting with trying to visualize and couldn't. Well, he did in the end, but I'll tell you that story in a minute. He broke me today. He really did actually crack me up. But it was when he was suicidal and couldn't understand emotions, because to him, this is where a lot of people, and especially teenagers, find it difficult to organize emotions with thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs, because there is no apparent structure. It seems all very hypothetical. And so that was where I created this to help him see his emotions, because he couldn't get it all in here. He couldn't understand why, when he felt sad or angry or depressed all the time, it was just this completely overwhelming feeling that had no purpose or no sense to it. And it was too much for him to cope with those feelings. But once I gave him this structure and organized his emotions, or the core emotions, into a way that he could understand them, it gave him the knowledge to be able to start recognizing and managing his own emotions. And the minute he'd then taken away that overwhelm and could stop and analyze his emotions better, and the power that he had for change, it gave him a chance to progress personally. So it gave him that, what do we call this? Organized versus being productive. It allowed him to be more productive with other things in life, rather than constantly being stuck and overwhelmed with that emotional overload. So anyway, if you're up for a story, I could tell you. I've got his permission for this, by the way. So we're talking about visualizing into things. But Sue, who has wrote Misunderstood No More, and I know Rory's talked about being able to feel into things, but not actually being able to visualize them in his mind. And a couple of months back, I mentioned it to my son, who is also autistic spectrum. And he said, I don't think I can. He said, never really thought about it. And I mean, I knew he was a visual learner for years, but it didn't occur to me that internally he couldn't visualize. Now, I knew my ex-husband couldn't. 28 years was with him, and I knew he couldn't, but that was it. We never really discussed it. I didn't know what it was called. We never looked at it as a thing. We just knew how to work around it. But anyway, my son today came back from holiday. So I took the children home, met them there. They come back from holiday. And he said, we were in the caravan the other night, and he said his wife went to sleep, and I laid there, he said, and I just couldn't go to sleep. So I said, I know, I'll start counting sheep. He said, but I couldn't see the sheep. He said, and then I started thinking about this aphantasia, and he remembered the name. It's like, why can't I see sheep? I know. Oh my goodness, I must have a problem with this as well. He's trying to find these sheep. He said, I could not find them. I could not see sheep. So he thought, I wonder if I can visualize something that I actually know. I mean, it's not like he hasn't seen sheep before either. I grew up on a sheep farm, and he grew up a few houses away. He knows what sheep look like, but he could not visualize sheep. He said, I know, I'll imagine I'm in my bedroom, and I'll visualize my bedroom. He said, I'm laying there and I could kind of vaguely knew my body was there, but I couldn't remember what my bedroom was like, he says. He said, I can't even think. Let me just focus on one wall. No, nothing on that wall, nothing there, nothing here. I can't remember what my bedroom looks like, he's saying. Okay, he says, this isn't working. Clearly, I can't visualize. He said, and then I had an idea. I wonder if I can feel anything. So in his mind, he said, I reached out to my left and thought, there's books there. He said, now I couldn't picture the books at all, but he said, by imagining I could feel it, I could feel the books there. So I thought, I feel what else is there? And he said, I could feel things around me, even though I couldn't see them, which is really strange because he's not in his bedroom at all. He says, so I thought, I look, hang on a minute, books, I look, I can see the books now. He says, so when I touched the books, I could see them. When I touched the lamp, I could see it. When I touched the blanket, he got really curious at this point. So he said, I'm gradually going around lighting things up in the bedroom till I could see them, and thought, right, I can visualize now. I go back to counting sheep. So he said, right, I need a grassy field and a fence. He said, I couldn't do it. And Brendan, he's killing himself laughing, telling me this. He said, couldn't do it. Right, okay. It worked in the bedroom. Why? Because I was touching things. I know what I do. I'll take my shoes off and stand on the grass. So he said in his vision, he took his shoes off, stood on the grass and thought, I can see the grass now. Hang on a minute, I need a fence. So he said, I reached out and held on to what felt like a fence. And when I looked around, I could see it. It was like, right, I've got a grass, I got some fence. Time to start counting sheep. Still can't see them. So he said, I followed the grass and the fence for a bit. But then weirdly, he said, it was suddenly going upwards, like one of those folded worlds. He's like, this isn't right. No, this is a bit weird. He said, so he backed up along the fence till he was level again. I thought, right, how am I going to find sheep? And he went, got one. So he made the first fence sheep, jumped the fence. And finally, he said, really focused for a while. He said, this is supposed to be relaxing counting sheep. He said, but it wasn't. He said, and then I saw another one and thought, right, finally got another sheep. And he said, it went to jump the fence and it glitched in midair. I was going like this over the fence. He's like, this is not working. And he was getting more frustrated. So he's like, how am I going to get these sheep to jump the fence? At this point, I tell you, I'm just sitting there with tears running down my face at this point. He went, I know, it works when I touch them. So he's got feet on the grass, hand on the fence. And he went, sheep, right. One sheep, two sheep. And he said, I'm chucking the sheep for the fucking fence. The only way he could visualize anything was to touch it. So I'm not laughing at anybody else with aphantasia. I am aware it is an issue, but my son's version of exploring it today was absolutely hilarious.
Amazing.
He was not going to give up.
That is brilliant. That is so good. That is so good. It's totally reminding me of once trying to count sheep and just not being able to do it. Yeah, fascinating. That's so fascinating.
Not either.
Yeah.
I can visualize. And the funny thing is, I saw my daughter afterwards and I said to her, but when you dream or you visualize things, what is it like? And she said, well, it's bright. She says, very bright, brighter than daylight. And things are really vivid colors. I was like, really? So apparently mine's very different because I can visualize, but for me, it's very dark and it's almost like looking at it through part light. So when I dream or when I visualize, it's like when you go on Canva and you get an image and you put it over a black background and then you fade it down. Actually, very much like all the cards that are put on the Self-Help Bookshelf channel. Each time I've done a video or a podcast, I put a thumbnail over it with a faded image. And those faded images are about equivalent to anything that I visualize, with minus some of the detail. So it'd be interesting to hear how anybody else visualizes in terms of, like you're saying, getting into that vision, bringing it back on track here, being in vision so we know what we want to achieve, to work on the productivity, to work on the organizational skills, to actually achieve and succeed and find the happiness along the way as we do it as well in little bits and pieces. So yeah, crazy story today listening to that. But yeah, it'd be interesting to hear if there's anything else anybody wants to talk about as well, whether it is a different topic altogether, whether it's something to do with today, or if there's a previous episode that you want to catch up on and then ask questions from, and for us to expand on it, please do let us know, because like we're saying about collaboration, and this is what it's about for us. We collaborate with each other to bring the topics to you, but without you as an audience, there is no collaboration altogether. It's just as relevant to us that you are watching in as us sharing it, if not more so. So thank you ever so much to anybody who's been watching in live today on Facebook, YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And so I've got a couple of ideas for next time, but I'm going to hold them off for now. And I am going to commit to finding out what it was I said last time. I'm bringing that forward for the next one. And then we'd love your ideas from everybody else as well for some more topics that you want to cover. If not, we will definitely organise some more. And we had lots organised to begin with, but we've already covered most of them. We had a long list, but we've kind of got through the list. So we need to find some more. But no, thank you, Rory. And that's been a really interesting topic today. I
Yeah,
wasn't
brilliant.
sure where it was going to go when we started. It was so random, but this is very often the way with us, isn't it?
Yeah, awesome.
Um, Anything else from you before we close up today? Final
Um,
thoughts?
I think it's yeah, it's just a case of what comes back to my mind is just getting used to, like you said about the how to, and really about getting the logic brain settled in on what's wanted from the heart brain, and emotionally connected to what's truly important. And that can often take questions, and I love asking questions, and that's what coaching's all about, really. So yeah, that's all I would say is, if fast track it if you want to, with all these things, rather than like the how to, or watching videos and stuff is all great when it's where the conversations start with conversations. So yeah, I love it. Thank you for bringing all those points together. And yeah, just yeah, that thing about reminding me about, as well, and of how how I was learning to visualize, and that being okay with what I could visualize and what I couldn't, and this counting sheep thing was just an excellent reminder as well, that it's pretty funny. And and it is there are ways to bring that vision to seeing, feeling, expressing, and connecting to all of that through our own unique learning ability, which is whether we see, feel, hear, how we experience ideas and concepts. And that's where the actually using our neurodivergence the way we want to is so important.
Yeah,
um, because that's only we can choose what we want to bring to the world, and how we bring about it is through either making the solitary work really efficient, and the collaborative work really efficient. They both will spread things so much better.
brilliant. Thank you, Rory. And yeah, it's incredible because that's the other thing, like you're saying, reach out, fast track. Sometimes we all get that bit where we just can't organize as effectively in one area of life as another. And that's, like we said, why we collaborate, why we reach out and get support, have coaches, mentors, people who come out and organize whole houses, people who organize paperwork. We have tax accountants and all sorts of people who organize things that other people are not good at organizing. So it's not about being right or wrong. It's actually about recognizing the areas that you're good at, recognizing the areas you want to work on, and also knowing which ones you want to just delegate off to somebody else and say, you do that one. But together, it's all part of the process, all makes progress. Progress is happiness, even if it's not completion. Remember, progress and completion are two different things. But when completion happens, that's the big celebration. So thank you, everybody, for watching in today, all about being organized versus being productive, how they work together, how they hinder each other, and how it all helps with personal growth and personal development. Small actions for significant difference in your life. So that's another episode of High Leverage Actions complete for today. And we will see you all again for another episode next Monday. Thank you,
Amazing.
Rory.
Thanks so much. Okay, and
Bye,
everyone,
everyone.
much love.